Greetings ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's Reddit Quickie from the subreddit HFY, called Biddy Bob Space Trucker Chapter 24. Written by Legal. The link to the original is down below, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. The capital of the Galactic Government Council was a planet chosen especially for the purpose. It was what humans might call a Gaia-class world. Her gravity was heavier than anyone in the council liked, but that had been part of the point when they founded the council here. They had fitted massive gravity generators across the planet within the deep craters that dot the continents, making for perfectly contained bowl cities. Each of the major council species had a crater dedicated to their own environment, and tailored to their tastes. The less powerful species would share various craters with similar species. The largest of these craters housed the council itself, in the Capitol building. It was a massive spire stretching high enough to look over the edge of the crater at the lush green terrain beyond. Despite having settled centuries ago, no species expanded past the craters. It was easier to control the gravity within the craters, and it was part of their statement about the planet itself. Leave most of it intact, and just use portions of it to tailor to the needs of each race. Of course, some joked that this visual paradise hid a bureaucratic hellhole, since these were so many different species as the members of the council, but it was tailored around the founding members, and there were some species who couldn't stay awake through the council meetings, and many who weren't comfortable in the settings. This was how the galactic government generally worked. They preached cooperation and unity, but at the same time only catered to the tastes of the most powerful species. Each of those craters had been fought for on paperwork war, meetings after meetings, constant committees about every last little detail. The solar cycle of the planet itself was irrelevant, and the meetings and the ceremonies and the appointments at all times. To help combat their own time cycles, most species would hire specifically trained diplomats from species who would better endure the time changes and varied climates. There were never-ending paperwork assigned studies, and a training going on to try and keep the species in the proper standing with the founding species. The Polvonians, with their love of rules and paperwork, made sure to keep it all as complicated and as painful as possible. And the Gawaldians, a species some humans might call hamsters, were left to run as many of the various offices and file paperwork. It wasn't that they were good at it. In fact, they were known for being nervous and prone to losing their files that had been submitted. Another layer that had been added to make it as difficult as possible for anyone to get anything done. There were special Polvonian branches where those were allowed to bypass the Galwardian departments to make sure that the council species had their paperwork all in order. One of the reasons why the Galwardians were always so nervous was because they had been alone in the home planet. There had been another species that was much stronger and meaner, but less intelligent. The official story was that the Crusticans had saved the Galwardians and being killed by these other species. In exchange, the Galwardians were ever in their debt. In reality, the other species had been brutish, but more in a harmless idiot sort of way, never taking out their anger on the smaller Galwardians. But the Crusticans had no use for them, and plenty of the uses for the seemingly harmless slave race. They had been intent on achieving this goal when they'd been discovered by other species. They quickly changed their story and terrified the Galwardians into keeping up the charade. By this time, almost none of the Galwardians even knew the truth, but a very small group kept the true history alive, waiting for the right moment to make it known. The Galwardian ambassador was one of them, and he knew that now was not the time. He was in a special chamber deep beneath the main council building. It was where the council founders met for security meetings. He usually wasn't invited, but today he'd been dragged along to give the appearance of unity amongst the founders. He was seated on a plush, powerful-looking chair on a platform with the other founders, overlooking a mass of ambassadors from the member species who'd been dragged out of bed, or out of meetings to be here. The Crustican honor guard surrounding them. We want to make this clear. We expect a unanimous vote condemning the actions of the Libertonian and human terrorists, and a declaration of war against them. That was the Crustican matriarch, Elliot. She was older and larger than the other Crustican matriarchs. She had been part of the force that had wiped out the Gewaldians' old neighboring species all those centuries ago. He didn't even know why they needed an honor guard to intimidate the others. She could kill everyone in this room on her own, eat it, and still be hungry. But we saw the Crustican ships advancing into human space before the attack on your colony. That was the Katyan ambassador, a furred species with light omnivorous near the human space. They were new, but they didn't truly understand how galactic government worked yet. The suppression devices hadn't been tailored for them yet, which was likely why she even dared to speak back. We were moving forward because of our intelligence made it clear that they were hostile. It has been explained to you pathetic wretches before. This government is a democracy, and as a democracy, I demand a unanimous vote to show solidarity. She had raised up and stomped on the ground, shaking the chamber under her girth. There was a fear on the faces of the ambassadors, and Patel, the Gewaldian ambassador, looked along the platform at the other species. The Bolvanians and their smug superiority, the Greslins and their damned codes, the Phyllis and their stupid dancing, and of course the Crusticans. They had spoken to greed of the other founders so long ago, stirring up hatred and jealousy towards the Libertonians who could fly, and were too tall and graceful and intelligent. Patel cursed the ambassador from that age. They should have stood by the Libertonians. It would have been better to be wiped out as they fought than be slaves in all but name for centuries. These humans were his chance to have his revenge for all the wrongdoings done against his people. He just had to bide his time. Then he realized the other founders were looking at him. Yes, of course. This is just like the time that our saviors, the Crusticans, were able to liberate us from our old predators. We need to respect their judgment and abide by their call. Once he said that, he could feel the sweat from his brow under his fur, but the other founders nodded and added their agreement. He quickly dabbed a cloth across his forehead and gulped. Damn his nerves. He watched the Crustican matriarch intimidate the other ambassadors for a moment. Soon, he'd find some way to get his revenge on the horrible creature. All the crimes committed against his people would be paid back in full, and he'd be the one laughing at them. No more Patel this and Patel that. If only his people were good at something other than farming. They were terrible at paperwork, couldn't fight, and their engineers only made farming equipment. He paused, and then he looked out, and he saw the old ambassadors looking at him. Nervously, he looked to the side to see the other founders staring at him and the matriarch scowling as she shouted, "Battle!" He squealed and jumped, falling out of his chair and rolling around as he tried to get to his feet. Useless little, the matriarch scowled, as the other founders laughed at the Gewaldian disparity, reaching up to grab the edge of the chair to pull himself up. "No, please, Patel, take your time," she hissed in annoyance. "Stupid little rodent." Sorry, matriarch. I was thinking about food again. My error." He huffed, trying to get his breath back. "You fat little—" "Keep your mind on the matriarch claw. No, never do anything right," she hissed. He had finally righted himself back up and sat in his chair. "Never mind, Patel, I'll make it clear myself." The patriarch looked back at the other ambassadors as Patel clutched his chest, feeling his heart thudding like mad. "Besides condemning the humans and declaring war, I want a special directive naming the most wanted enemy of the entire galactic government." She scowled at the assembled ambassadors. "There is no greater threat, no bigger enemy of us all than the human known as Billy Bob, Space Trucker. I swear to George Washington Almighty, if any of you talk about my workout music ever again, I'll have you brought up on charges," Captain Crunch growled over the comm. "Sorry, it was too good not to share, especially when I found out that you like to move it. Billy Bob said, and the archangels chuckled as the other archangel echoed out, "Move it. Not a word." I have worked very hard to be taken seriously as an officer. Being born with the last name Crunch isn't exactly the easiest thing in the world, you know. So why not change it? I refuse to let society force me to change. Suit yourself, Captain, Billy Bob said as he walked forward. He'd gotten the hang of the suit now, and they were walking along one of the roads leading to the cargo port. Most of the time they'd moved the cargo around on the surface on massive mag trains, but they still had roads for private vehicles. They walked down onto one of these roads while Ivanich piloted the Longhorn. The ship was set to hover and crept along nice and slow. Emily was in the back ready to climb into the damaged but functional Libertonium power suit, and should they need the help. Crunch was in the cargo bay out of sight as she spoke on the comm. They were taking a very leisurely stroll along the road, their back power suits arranged around the Longhorn in a loose rectangle. Billy Bob in front to the left. Emily to Greslin's wave. Yes. Would a Pulvernian understand? Yes. He waved at the guard standing at the gatehouse and they walked over, keeping calm and casual pace. When they got close to the guard in a bright orange vest with a little cap stepped up, Billy Bob couldn't help but snicker a little at the sight as he and his clothes cut so that the curly hair popped out from various locations. Totally a space poodle. What's all this? We're here on a special assignment to search for the escaped terrorists who shot up the museum. We've been searching the wilderness for signs of them. Our government is taking this very seriously, which is why we're wearing brand new top-of-the-line suits, not the standard ones you've seen on the regular police. Oh, the poodle said with a slow nod. Hey, no one called ahead on us, did they? No, not that I know of. Oh, that's good. I was worried. Why's that? Well, Billy Bob lowered his speaker volume and leaned close. They've had us out in the forest for 2 whole solar cycles, just the 5 of us, and it's really creepy out there with just the 5 people. All the trees and the strange sounds at night, and we have to take turns standing guard while the others sleep. So sometimes we're all alone in the dark. The Pulvernian shuddered and thought, as Billy Bob knew who the idea would. That's awful. 2 whole solar cycles. Yeah, think about how many sleep cycles that is. That's the problem. They take so seriously that they won't let us come back right away. You know how it is. Your boss has some issue and he gets us to stay at home and rest like a normal, but he makes you take extra work shifts, even though none of it is your fault. Yeah, that's rough, the Pulvernian said with a nod. We were hoping that you'd let us in. Keep it quiet. We'd found a spot to stop and take a break. Maybe spend a sleep cycle here in the walls and get some actual rest. I know it isn't usual, but can you help us out? I'd really appreciate it. Hey, yeah, I know how it goes. It's fine. The shipments have been slow since they went down anyway. Hey, thanks. I'll note your help. See if we can return the favor sometime. The Pulvernian wagged its tail and walked back into the gatehouse, opening the gate for them. You know, you're not like the other fish cops that I know. You're normally so stiff and by the code. Oh, well, normally, but once you've been out in the forest at night, all alone, it changes you. Billy Bob watched the Pulvernian shudder once more, and then waved them inside. Billy Bob smiled his suit as they walked forward, entering into the cargo port. There was an admin building near the center, and a giant warehouse around the outside, with the docking bays for the massive Atlas ships in between. He wasn't sure how big it was, but he couldn't see the other side from where they were. That was excellent, Billy Bob, Crunch said, having listened in. Now what? Billy Bob hummed as he walked around, and then he started walking to the left. This way. He could see the Atlas that had the crew standing around in the loading bay, sitting on crates smoking something. A clear sign that they were done unloading and were waiting for someone to show up. Didn't matter what species. Billy Bob knew what to look for in cargo crews. They had to walk another 10 minutes even at a brisk pace to get there. And it was one of the closer bays, so Billy Bob realized this place must be really huge. Either way, he stood up straighter than normal and set into a confident stride as he approached the Xenos sitting around on the crates. He'd seen plenty of them around before, called them lickers. They had 4 arms and more reptilian appearance, sort of like a really big iguana. with extra limbs. They were about as tall as a human, but much lighter, obviously. And the main reason that he called them lickers was that they're super long tongue. They couldn't blink, so instead they'd lick their own eyes to moisten them. "All right, you lot need to clear out of here. We're coming through," he barked out as he got close, and they jumped off their crates, looking at the approaching black power suits. Many of them nervously licked their eyeballs while they stubbed out their smoking sticks that they'd been breathing in. And they weren't cigarettes, he realized as he got close. They literally looked like branches that had been partially set on fire. "What?" one asked Billy Bob, and he turned and stepped up to him abruptly, towering over him. "You heard me. Clear out. You got the notice half a cycle ago. I don't know why you're still here." What? The licker looked confused and licked his eyes even more than usual in his nervousness. "How many times do I need to say it? Clear out. This ship is being commandeered in the name of the Galactic Council. You're interfering with Council business here." He set his hands on his hip. "How bad do you want to go straight to space jail, huh? I hear that they have plenty of interesting cellmates willing to explore interspecies physical relations." No. There hasn't been, I didn't know." "Well, you're in the way of official business, like I said, so clear out." The lickers scurried away as he guided the Longhorn up the cargo ramp. The Atlas ships were so massive that the Longhorn fit into the center of the cargo bay and had room for another 7 of them, which were stacked properly. And that was just in the cargo bay. Took a lot of fuel to move them around, and they had big crews. Part of the reason human freight had been so popular was their lower costs and the ability to deliver smaller loads. As they set the Longhorn down on the bay, he saw the better-dressed command crew walking down the stairs at the front of the cargo bay. "What's the meaning of this?" the best-dressed licker asked as he approached. "I should ask you that," Billy Bob said, and pointed at the creature as he stepped back in surprise. "We gave you notice half a cycle ago, and I find your crew outside, smoking. They hadn't prepared the ship or removed their personal effects. Are you intending on obstructing our operations?" What? I don't know. What were we, His tongue was rubbing all over his eyeballs in anxiety. "I could have you written up right now. Do you want the short-term appropriation to turn into a total impound?" I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, playing dumb, are we? We sent your comm officer a report half a cycle ago about commandeering this ship for a small jump around the planet and bringing it back before the solar cycle is over. It was a time critical and we were willing to compensate you. But turns out that this is how you prep." The captain looked over to the other licker, who looked panicked and confused. He wiggled his eyes and made a gesture with his 4-fingered hands. Billy Bob translated, told him that was a shrug. "We didn't get anything like that," he sputtered. "We have a confirmation from Officer Jass." One step forward. "I'm Officer Jass." Billy Bob could not believe his luck. "Is your first name Hugh? Are you Hugh Jass?" They stared at him when the translator struggled to differentiate his words. "What? Don't give me that. It's a simple question." He pointed at the licker. "Are you Hugh Jass? Tell me, right now, where I can find Hugh Jass." What? The translator. "Obstructing government operations, are you?" No, I'm Jass, just not Hugh Jass." "Fine. Clear out of here, all of you. Your belongings will be returned when we're done with your ship. Off. He began to wave them out of the cargo bay, stomping behind them and scurried away out of the ship. The archangels were laughing over the private comm, but none had their speakers on, thankfully. Billy Bob corralled the lickers off the ship, and they stood around looking confused as the captain spoke up. "What's going to happen? We're going to take your ship for a solar cycle, and you'll get it back when we're done. But what do we do until then? First of all, what's your launch clearance? We left the data slate on the bridge." "Excellent. All right now then." Billy Bob pointed to the biggest admin building at the center of the complex. "You need to go find Amanda in accounting. Amanda Hugginkiss. You go there and you demand Amanda Hugginkiss. You shout it out if you need to. You do not leave until you finally find Amanda Hugginkiss. Then she'll give you a receipt. But now clear out, we're taking off," Billy Bob said, walking back inside, waving to Sergeant White, who hit the button to start closing the cargo ramp. Once it was closed, they were left alone in the massive cargo bay. Billy Bob held his hands out. "Who's good? Who is good? Touchdown dance. Woo-hoo! He began to dance as the archangels laughed and applauded his performance. All right, get out of my damn suit and get the pig in the air. Crunch finally said, Come on, don't be grumpy. This way no one had to die, and we're out of here free and clear. Live it up, Captain. We're not out of here yet, Lieutenant, she growled. All right, Billy Bob said, opening up the hatch at the back of the suit. Little help here. He tried to pull up and out, but it was just still injured. So he was groaning and struggling, but he couldn't pull himself out. Tal stepped over, reaching in to help pull him out. Much more gentle than with a power suit than he was. He was held in her arms for a moment as he looked at her. Are you my mommy? And she snorted before dropping him onto the deck. He got his feet underneath him, but hit a little hard, so he had to stumble forward and then slowly straighten up, managing to keep from falling flat on his face. Cat-like reflexes! Do I cease to amaze? We're all impressed with your ability to spew bullcrap out of your mouth, Billy Bob, Cal said, as she had a crap-eating grin plastered on her face. Crunch had come out of the Longhorn to get back in her suit, and he headed deeper into the ship. Climbing up a small xenote stairs, 2 at a time, he still had to traverse several halls and corridors before making it into the bridge. He tapped into the ship's internal comm system, and he began to look up at the systems. The engines were cold, but he wasn't sure how long it would take for the lickers to realize that they'd been hijacked. Ivan, get into engineering. Get them engines warmed up. I'm going to get the other systems online. We need to kick the tires and light the fires, and get out of here pronto. He found the command chair, shaking his head at how lazy they were with these systems. Navigation, steering, speed, communications, they were all handled by different people. One human could easily handle steering and speed, and likely navigation of their own. Hell, adding in communication wasn't even that hard either. He had to drag a number of monitors over to the command chair, slaving them to its control, and he sat down and started to type. Life support was obviously online, but he adjusted the atmosphere to be more human-friendly. Then he stopped as he thought of Emily and set it to standard. Ivan had the engine startup sequence going, and he quickly brought the other systems online, testing nav boosters, grav generators, and inertia dampeners one by one to make sure that they were fully functional. He kept all of them running on his Longhorn, since fully shutting it down was more trouble than it was worth when he could get it unloaded and going in less than an hour. The engines were just starting to spin when he got the call from the tower. He quickly picked up the data slate and turned the video off. This is Tower. We've got indications of an engine spin-up from your platform. We don't have you scheduled for takeoff for another half a solar cycle. Yes, Tower, this is... He looked at the data slate. Atlas 894376-221. No name. Did Xenos not name their ships? Well, crap. Did Jas not call you up? We've had a change of plans. We're no longer waiting on cargo. We're preparing for immediate takeoff. Atlas 221, what's the recent trouble? You are aware of the enhanced security protocols. Yeah, Tower. I've had my launch codes right here. Foxtrot Echo Zulu 361. Understood, Atlas. However, that was the launch code for tonight. Not right now. We're supposed to have a security sweep of your ship before the new code can be given. Oh, is that necessary? They swept us to give us this one, and that was earlier. Do you really think some dangerous terrorists have snuck into the port and taken over our ship without any explosions or fighting? There was a pause as Billy Bob held his breath. Yeah, that is pretty unlikely. They're supposed to be real savage barbarians. I heard they fornicate in pools of blood. Ugh, that's disgusting. Right. Yeah, you're okay to go, Atlas 221. No one is launching. I'll clear it with Central. Appreciate it, Tower. He let out a breath and smiled once more as he got the ship operational. Then he brought up his internal PA. Someone come up here. I'm going to need you to tell me where I'm going. He took a few minutes before he joined by Captain Crunch on the bridge. We can't contact our cruiser until we've passed orbit. Otherwise, they might pick it up. Oh. Sorry, I should have clarified. I have watched these screens, and I can steer from the nav comp, but I can't actually see outside to see if there's something in my way. What? Can't you get Ivanich to steer? I don't know. Ask him. Ivanich, can you steer this thing? No, it's too big. That's what she said, Billy Bob shouted over the PA. Hey-oh! Fine, stay in engineering. They stepped forward on the bridge and looked at the viewports. What do you need to know? Is there anything directly in front of us that we'll hit? No, there are buildings. Holy crap, buildings! We'll never escape. There was a pause as he read the screens around him. If you're glaring at me, I can't see it. Anyway, just sit down somewhere and don't crush anything. Finally, he activated the engineerings and disengaged the locks. The Atlas began to rise out of the dock, and he angled it up at a slow pace. The buildings are getting closer. Port or starboard? Port. He shifted the ship a little angle and a further up, keeping it slow. Nothing but sky. He started to pick up speeds. Clouds, the sky is getting darker. He checked the readings on his nav comp. Atlas 221, this is Central. You're not following the proper protocol. You need to angle down and reduce speed. That's not what your wife said last night. Excuse me? All she kept shouting was harder, harder. How dare you? Eat crap, Central. I'm the fricking pilot. I don't need your stupid computers to tell me what I'm doing. But hey, let your wife know that I had a great time last night with her and your sister. Who is this? I'll report you. I'll have you brought up in charges. Oh, I'm shaking in my boots. Like the cops, they're going to give a crap about me screwing around with your family. It's legal, buddy. Well, maybe not what your mother did. That was some nasty stuff. I'll kill you. I'll hunt you down. You're dead. Billy Bob cut off the feed with a smile. And now this fight won't be properly recorded and tracked because he'll have to explain that call. Now why don't we get this freaking hog on rolling? And punching the crunch started to make a call to the cruiser. To make it clear to find them, he began to broadcast a new designation. Rosie. Then across the ship's PA, music rang out. Want to tell you a story about a woman I know. When it comes to loving, she steals the show. She ain't exactly pretty, she ain't exactly small. 423956 she call. She say she's got it all. Billy Bob was banging his head as he flew, and then the chorus came and he yelled at the tune. Well, lot of Rosie. And so ends another chapter in the adventures of Billy Bob, Space Trucker. I hope that you enjoyed. If you'd like to support the channel or the author, all the stuff is down below. And as always, I hope that you guys have a good one, and I'll see you in the next story. Cheers.